So for those of you that are joining for free or for the first time, I'm Elizabeth Schaefer. I am an occupational therapist, and I worked in the pediatric realm for about 18 years. And then I shifted to working more with parents. I still work with kids here and there, but I really felt like there was a missing piece to working with parents that I kind of wanted to slide in. And one is that informational piece. So that's why I created this. And also is the piece of stress, because no one really talks about the stress parents go through when we are raising kids with special needs and the amount of different things we have to do. So I've also focused on that as well. But the topic that I'm going to talk to you today about, sensory integration, is really, that has been my passion for a long time. When I first started working back in 2001, 2002, and I was working with kids, I couldn't figure out why I was doing the activities and they just weren't getting it. And, so I started to explore, like, what's going on? Why, no matter how many times I'm doing this activity with this child, why are they not getting it? And that's when I started to investigate more with sensory integration, understanding the sensory system. And so I went to be certified in sensory integration. I went through lots of different tests, and I use it a lot in my practice. And sensory integration in the sensory system is so important that we really don't truly understand how important it is. So I only have 2 slides for you, but I do want to share with you just the slide, because before I get into how sensory integration and sensory regulation work together, I just want a little bit of backstory on what sensory integration is. So as you see here, the senses are one of the first things to develop. And if you go across the slide, you look, so you have your senses, and then the senses that are responsible for different things. So the second level of development is the senses working together to help with eye movements, to help with balanced posture, all those early reflexes. And then if you go to the next stage is the body perception, motor planning, activity level, attention span. And then the next level is speech and language, eye-hand coordination, visual perception, and purposeful activity. And everything builds upon each other, right? And then the end result, you have the ability to concentrate. All these senses are working together to organize where you are in space, organize yourself, self-esteem, self-control. So the senses are really important in everything we do. I mean, think about it right now. You're watching me, you're hearing me, it's something we take for granted. But a lot of times what happens is when our kiddos that have sensory processing challenges, and those senses aren't working, or one sense is hyper responsive to information and one sense is under responsive, it's gonna affect their behavior. It's gonna affect their ability to learn. And so when we talk about self-regulation, the ability to regulate yourself, right? To regulate your emotions, regulate your behavior, have that self-control, having the ability to modulate senses in there is going to be a key piece. Now, I could talk really for 4 weeks just about sensory integration to get into the nitty-gritty, but I'm going to give you the overview. And I'm going to give it to you on how we can use sensory integration to help with self-regulation. Because that is really the main focus, is what I do as a therapist, is trying to get kids in that optimal state where they're calm, regulated, and focused. Now, if you guys have been doing distant learning, you're like, my kid has not been that way for like a year and a half. We help our kids regulate right now when we're sitting in front of a screen for most of the day. So with self-regulation, I find that, really the greatest piece is watching what our kids need, is usually watching what they're doing that we're saying, oh my God, quit doing this. And usually why they're doing this because they need it. So those kiddos that are constantly moving and on the go, they actually need a little more of that to feel regulated and to feel calm. So that's one way you can really start to see, how can I help my kid organize and regulate? Is you can see what they are doing. What kind of input are they seeking? Another way, and one of the primary ways I help kids, and what we don't always think about, is it's called the proprioceptive sense. And that is really our calming. When we give input to that proprioceptive system, it helps us calm. So when we start to see what our sensory system needs to regulate and calm, we can start giving our kids that. So what I want to do is I want to kind of open up the discussion, and I want to see, just every kid is different, and what will calm and regulate one kid may not calm and regulate another. For instance, the weighted blanket. I know a lot of kids love, for me, I have a weighted blanket. I got it for my kid and I decided I needed one too. And I use it as well. And that helps me to just feel calm, because it gives me that pressure and it gives me that safe space to know where my body is in space. So for me, that's very calming. But a child that's very sensitive and doesn't like that heavy input, it's not calming. So it's really good to see what our kids need. The self-regulation piece and behavior, when we're looking at behaviors, because I feel like that's why probably many of you are here, is because you're like, how can I control my kids' behavior and help them regulate and pay attention and focus? And so one of the things, we all have different behavior approaches, right? What a speech therapist may say regarding behavior, an OT may say something different, an occupational therapist may say something different, a behaviorist, an ABA therapist may say something different. So when I think of behaviors, I tend to look at 4 causes of behaviors, and this is by Catherine Cavalls. I took this workshop when I was a therapist because I was having kids come in and they were having behaviors, and I couldn't get to the therapy because I couldn't get past their behaviors to get them to work with me. And so she had done this course for the therapist. And I really like her model because it says the 4 reasons for behaviors that tend to be negative behaviors is power. I can understand that. Think of some negative behaviors, wanting that power, feeling in control. Attention, which I know we hear often, just they want attention. But this is one I find a lot with our kids that we overlook, and that is inadequacy. They can't do something, so they are going to act out to get out of it so they don't have to fail at it. And I see that a lot with our kids. And the last is revenge. Like, if you made me mad, I'm going to do something to make you mad, right? They're going to, you took this away from me, I'm going to act out and I'm going to, get revenge on you. So and I have found those 4 areas pretty much with my kids. I have a child that's 11 and 12, 2 boys. And I found when they do something, it pretty much falls into that. Well, Catherine Cavalls actually added one more later after she wrote her book as a reason for behaviors or hard to manage behaviors. And that reason she added later was sensory processing disorder or sensory integration challenges, because she knew those kids that had really sensitive hearing and if they're overloaded from all the input from their senses coming in at once, they're trying to keep it together and then they just can't anymore. And then they explode, or then comes the behavior. So she did add that in. And so knowing that our sensitive kids can become overwhelmed when the world around them, so, having that understanding of sensory integration is key. So sensory regulation and calming. So how can we help our kids calm? And I think right now, or get their energy up. I feel like there's 2 things we really could approach today for regulation. One is getting that input so they're attending. I have a lot of parents that are saying, my kids are just in front of the computer, they can't focus, I can't get them to do their homework. And I think for those kids that can't focus and are having problems in that area, they need stimulation. They need movement. They need to do some wall push-ups. They need to be jumping on the little trampoline. Like, they're the ones that really need movement. For my guy, he is a mover and he has lots of energy. You know, he does have ADHD and dyslexia as well, but he says he doesn't have ADHD. He just says he has a lot of energy. So I agree with that. You know, and he has so much energy, but he needs to release that energy. And so he needs to move, and it's hard, you know, that's the one thing. So when he's sitting, we always take those movement breaks. But when we take its movement breaks, it's not just moving. It's actually moving that adds other things in it. So that's why I like the trampoline, because when you're jumping, you're getting that movement, but you're also getting that proprioception to the joints. And remember, I said proprioception is those signals you're getting from the joints. It usually helps your body know where it is in space. A lot of our kiddos have no idea where their body is in space, right? They're bumping on things, they're putting their clothes on backwards. You know, they don't know their right and their left. It can be very, very difficult for a lot of our kids to know where they are in space. So doing activities like trampoline, and believe it or not, it's a detox. I just found that out from a friend who's a functional medicine practitioner, that jumping is actually a way to stimulate the body, the detox system. So, hey, our kids could probably use a little detox as well. I know I could. So I am an advocate of self-regulation, jumping on a trampoline if you can. The other things, climbing walls. You know, they're all over the place now, the climbing gyms, which of course I think a lot of them are closed now, but that's such a great way to get focus, attention, and coordination. And you're really getting that input when you're pulling up. I love climbing gyms. And for those kids that are a little scared to have their feet off the ground, you know, a little bit at the time, I've seen kids go from being very fearful of climbing and heights to just overcoming that fear and just being so confident in themselves. It's just, I love climbing gyms. So for some kids, that is a great avenue for self-regulation. In some people, like that deep pressure. I'm sure if any of you've heard of Temple Grandin, she is a big advocate for autism. Well, she in college created this device. It was a very large device, but she found after being in class and being in front of people, she just needed to calm down. Her nervous system was just frazzled. And so she built this big machine that she could go in and like roll on her. And really it gives deep pressure right here to the chest. And she later took that invention that she made for herself to calm down to help calm cattle before they went to the slaughterhouse. But yeah, you know, but because she saw that they, you know, anyway, but so it really does help calm here. So what I do a lot of times for my kiddos, so that self-regulation piece when they're going to sleep, is I always ask a kid before I touch them, all my kids, any kids, just because a lot of these kids, you know, that unexpected touch, they are sometimes very sensitive. So I always ask permission. And so I ask, say, can I just give you a little rub on your chest good night? And it really helps him to kind of calm down. And so some people also use weighted animals to sleep with because that helps that pressure to calm as well. And massage. My kiddos, because insurance covers it, but they go for massage, believe it or not, because it helps them with their body awareness. It helps me, it helps them. So as if we're, you know, I saw someone said their kid was 29, you know, if they like that, massage is a great way to help them decrease stress, because I feel, you know, our kids are stressed out, and especially our kids that are special and have high sensitivity. So any way we can help them decrease stress is going to help them self-regulate, because when kids aren't self-regulating, it's because their nervous system is either too hyper or under responsive, right? And normally it's more on the hyper side because they're a little bit stressed from all the information coming in. So those are some of the things to calm. So let's talk about ways to regulate by increasing movement, increased stimulation. So those kids that are just sitting there on the couch and just don't want to do anything and just have problems initiating homework or initiating doing things. Movement helps. Movement really, really helps. Some of the little guys, I see there's like 8-year-olds, 10, 13. So some of my younger guys, the 6, Go Noodle is a really good program. My kids loved it. It was kind of fun. And they get to move, and they're following movement from the people that are on the TV. The other one is Cosmic Yoga is a great one too, to help kids kind of regulate and calm and watch and get input from, if not always you, but from the TV that's doing it. So those are 2 great things that I have used for self-regulation, for movement. I've also used crab walking, and I will list after I'm done here, I will list some things. There are 2 OT organizations that give free things, but they also have printed material that have some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things for you that you can do at home to help with different sensory needs, self-regulation. So they have some great tips, which I'll share at the end as well. But a lot of it's just simple. Get outside and play. You know, I was a kid, I had sensory processing challenges. I was the kid in kindergarten, I sat in a separate room and did puzzles the whole year. You know, what would I be diagnosed with today, right? But I grew up in the 70s and 80s where we had Saturday morning cartoons. I was outside playing in the dirt, going on the swings. I used to, at recess, swing for as long as I was out there. I was on that swing because I knew I needed it. And so how can we help our kids get that input? Because I think a lot of them are seeking it. It's just they don't always have the opportunity to get it. And especially now with things being closed down, it's really, really, really hard for these kids. So if you can get them out, get them on the playground, doing different things, have them, you can create different you can roll them in a blanket, the little guys. I used to roll my little guy in a blanket and then unroll it, and he would love that. And that's another way to help them kind of get that movement, get that stimulation, get moving and active. So now I want to kind of open it up. I gave you a little bit about movement to stimulate those kiddos that need more energy. And then that proprioceptive, that deep input to kind of calm the kids that are really just needing to be calm and focused. So I want you to open it up now. If someone wants to share maybe some challenge that they have with their child with self-regulating, and maybe just give a short description of the challenge they're having, or just a description of the child's behavior, or a scenario where you kind of wish that they would be a little bit more calm and organized.
I can jump in there. With my daughter at, in the evenings, she just has trouble. She's kind of, I think, the inattentive type, where she doesn't have a whole lot of ability to self-regulate in terms of making an effort. She gets frustrated easily. So, and I do find that exercise helps. It helps with me because I'm the same way. So exercise is kind of one of the keys. And yeah, so just for the inattention, the getting quickly frustrated, and then not being able to get anywhere. Like when she's into that mode of frustration or panic or whatever you want to call it, she's not able to she's just not able to continue with whatever it is. And it's almost like it almost looks like she's getting kind of a fear response, or like a fight or flight kind of thing happening when she tries to really bear down and make an effort. So
I find, thank you for sharing, because I find that's really common. I know my little guy, but I think probably all of us can relate to that. I think our kids are trying their best. And normally when I see a child just kind of lose it and just get so frustrated, it's usually not because it's that one thing. It's usually several other things that happened through the day that they let go. And then that was the one thing they're like, I can't handle it anymore. And usually then they're releasing their frustration, and that's why it's so hard to help them calm at that moment, because they've been trying to hold it in, and now it's like, I have all these emotions, I just got to let it out. And think of when you have an emotion. Think when you're really, really frustrated. What do you want someone to do for you? Your colleague at work just did something and you're like so frustrated. This colleague just kept doing this wrong, doing this wrong, doing this wrong, and you're just ready to just what, and you're telling me about it. What do you want me to do? How do you want me to respond?
I guess listening is the main thing. I just want somebody to listen.
And so I think our kids are the same. So in those moments, and it's hard because I think sometimes as parents, we want to solve. I am always trying to solve, trust me. And I've learned the hard way that there are moments that you just can't solve it at that moment. And they don't want you to solve it. They just want you to understand them and say this, and when you start to just give them that space and say, man, you've been working so hard on that. I know that's got to be frustrating. Empathize with them because that's what they want. And I tend to, with behaviors, I always find, I think I even mentioned that in the last group, sometimes, behaviors will get louder until they're heard. And so once we hear them and understand them, then they tend to not get louder because they're like, okay, I don't need to make this, more, so you really understand where I'm coming from. So that's one thing, listening and being, empathizing with them. And my son, it was so helpful to give him that space. And then later, when he's feeling better, I talk to him. I sit down and say, all right, I see you were just like, by then you were just so frustrated, and I get it. You were just really fed up. How can I help you at a later time, right? How can we make it easier? Talk to her. But then also just observe what is so difficult in that moment that made her feel frustrated. So what was she, is it more like writing, doing work? What would you say?
Mathematics.
Mathematics?
Mathematics, yeah.
Oh, mathematics. Okay. So if mathematics is hard and that's her trigger, if you can, try to do it with her so she's not getting as frustrated, or do a little extra practice. So that's the other thing. So one, I combat it as help with the skill that is really frustrating her. So maybe a little bit of extra math. But also with math, what people don't realize is math and movement, if you can get her to do, have you ever heard of brain gym?
Yeah, actually I have.
Okay.
That's like is that an online thing? Or wait, no, I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, and there's like brain balance, and there's a lot of brain things. Brain gym, it's just a movement exercise, different movements to kind of help with just organizing. It's based on Qigong, believe it or not. But with math, when she is getting frustrated in math, have her move around, shake it off, and then come back. Does that make sense? Because that can really just kind of help recenter her. And like you said, okay, it's more at the end of the night. And I feel, don't wait till they're tired to do the harder things, right? Pick earlier when they're not so tired. And it's probably hard. She's at the end of the day, she has math homework, and it's, you can't always pick your times, but I try to have them do the harder things earlier when they're not as frustrated. Did that help answer?
Yeah, thanks. That's helpful.
Okay, you're welcome. Is there anything else on that you want to add?
Not really.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. All right. B. Basu.
Hi there, Elizabeth and everyone. Just a quick question. So my son started, he's 3 years old, he's me 4. He started ABA. Mm-hmm. And he goes through phases. So he gets obsessed with certain toys. So like, he likes the ones that light up and the music and all that stuff. So it's great for us, right? he entertains himself. But since so I'm from Ottawa, Canada,
Okay.
and during this whole COVID thing, I was working. I'm a government employee, so working at home, so like, it was just a bit too much for my mental health. So I had to change. We were able to change cities. So I took a break, and then of course that brings about a change of routine and a different interest for my son. So then when I came back, his routine kind of changed, and then he wasn't so into like his toys and his room per se. Then he got into the gadgets like the iPad. So I'm just wondering like if that's normal and what we can do about it.
So you're asking if it's normal to be into electronics or normal to be kind of into one thing a lot?
Like obsessively. Like before it was like a couple of hours, and then since coming back, like he doesn't even go to his room to play. I show him all the toys we bought, even including the one that he used to enjoy. Now he's just into the iPad. He likes to really just scroll and watch like the educational cartoons, like the ABCs. But if I take it away, he has a meltdown. So we go from like the phone to the iPad, but that's all he's into. Like there's the trampoline, which he kind of uses rarely, and there's a few toys, but it's 90% like the iPad.
Okay.
I guess I'm just looking to see if anyone has similar experiences and what we can do to maybe distract him to something else.
Okay, I'll start, and then if anyone else has anything to add, please go ahead. So one of the things is some children, they have their one thing. My son's the same. My younger son, once he is into something, he is into something. He can tell you all you want to know about planes and trains and going to Middle Eastern countries. That is what he's into. So, he will be a great scientist who studies in depth certain things. So some people just have that. And, all kids go from, they switch toys. So one thing they may really be into, they're like, I got enough of that. Time to switch to something else. So that doesn't worry me that they're switching and may not go back to something because, our preferences change. And so, but the electronics for anyone, especially kids, it's like, wow, look at all these things, all the bright lights, look what I can make it do. And so electronics, they're made to be stimulating and addicting. Kids like them. So, I'm sure a lot of these people, a lot of other people can say too, that it is hard to get their kids off of electronics, especially younger kids. With me, I have learned whenever I am removing something from a child, especially when they're that young, number one, I never just take it away. I always give that preamp, but in a way that I'm not in another room or I'm not in another part of the room and saying, okay, it's almost done. I'm going to take the phone now. I come up to them, I'm next to them, I make sure they can see me and their attention's on me, and off of that for a second and say, one more minute, and then we're going to put it away. Helping with that transition and making sure they see you and they know, okay, one more minute. That can really help. And in a calm voice, and I know sometimes I'm frustrated by the time I get to my kids saying enough is enough. So try to do it before that happens. And after that 1 minute, then it goes away. And so you're gonna have meltdowns. It's kids, especially at that age, emotional regulation is very difficult. But if he learns that when you say it's done, you may get less and less of that reaction, because he may say, all right, I know that happens. And then you say it's done for now, but it'll come back out later. So he knows it's not the end of the world, right? So those are some of the things you can do when stopping something that he's really into, because I know kids too, they can get so into something that they can completely lose the world around them. And then when you try to take them out of that world that they just put themselves into to get out of this world, it can be very disrupting, especially kids that we call it sometimes they're stimming. My kid does this as well. And so by calmly just bringing them back in is always a good approach. Does anyone else have anything to add to that they want to share that has helped to kind of get out of that electronics or take the electronics away that has worked?
I have a question here.
Well,
I know
not not a question yet. If we can just focus on this one, and then I'll get to you with your question. Is that okay? Because I have Chesmack.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I can offer.
We can offer.
I can.
Okay, Chesmack, and then Sadie.
So this was one thing that we struggle with, particularly with our youngest, who like screen time is very limited in our house. It has to be earned, and it's like half an hour at most when earned. So it's not an everyday thing. And actually a few weeks ago, we sort of said like, don't anticipate it. It's not a given that you're getting screen time. It has to be earned, and don't expect it every day. And before, like, we were struggling with this where our youngest, we felt like he had such a need that we thought, okay, we'll just give him 20 minutes a day, and we'll tell him it's going to be from 5 o'clock until 5:20, so he doesn't get home from school and say at 3:30, can I have my screen time? When am I getting my screen time? So then he knew, don't ask. And we finally said to him, if you ask, you automatically lose it, because you want to encourage that delayed gratification and patience. And so it was like from 5 to 5:20, you have your screen time, and it has to be something like Minecraft, not any violent kind of stuff. And it has to be in the living room where there's an adult. And then we sort of shifted a couple of weeks ago where we just said, you know what, there's no more screen time. It's not a given anymore. It has to be earned. And if don't ask for it, and it was a real battle at first. But I think I've noticed that over the 2 weeks, it has calmed down. It's not such a, I need this. And when they get it, exactly like you say, there's all this, you have 10 more minutes left, now 5 more, now 2 more, now 1 more. But even when we would take the screen at that point, there would still be this screaming meltdown, even though there had been this prep, right? And so I find now that it's like, dude, like all of you, all 4 of you, don't expect this. And we've taken it to a different level of strictness. And, you're bored, let's do something else. Let's read or play or sensory bin or other things. And then so when they get the screen time, and then just being like, if you fuss pot about this at the end of it, then that I'm going to remember that the next time it's your screen time. And I have to say, with time and with us just like being calm and very kind and calm and loving and firm, I'm noticing it sort of getting better.
Thank you so much, Chesmack. And I like you said, calm, firm, and sticking to what you say, which is so important. And you also pointed out that predictability, having that set time where they have it. Now I know a 3-year-old, that's a bit difficult. But those are some very key points. And expect they're not going to like it. My kiddos actually, for a while, we were doing no TV on weekdays. And at first, the first week, it was terrible because they'd come home and want it. But then after that, they didn't care anymore. It was a normal thing not to have it. So, and with younger kids, 3-year-olds, I really try not to introduce electronics. They say not to like 8. I really try to keep electronics off of kids really young if I can, especially for durations, because so many other things are developing that I don't like that much input from electronics. So just a little side bit. And so Chesmack, I'm going to come back to you with your question. Marja, if you want to, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. Marja? Oh, okay.
Oh, this is Maria's husband, sorry.
Oh, okay, Maria. Oh, okay.
But you can call me Maria, it's okay. Just kidding. So related to your previous conversation with Benjamin, if I assume that it's his name. Okay, hi Benjamin. So usually we are talking about children, which we trying to understand them and emphasize, do empathy with them. Which we are asking them question, as you mentioned also in the example, how would you feel if somebody harasses you or frustrates you? How would you feel? What would you do actually? But what if in case, for example, my child usually when we go out, we are visiting our grandparents during the weekend. We go out to the park to take a walk or something. But then actually, when we arrive at home, suddenly I'm defining this as a meltdown. He starts crying. I cannot understand him. Why is he crying? Because emotionally, or I cannot read him. And I'm asking myself, why actually is he doing that? And by that, my question is how to handle in a situation when which we cannot emotionally understand our child when he's not speaking actually. What can we do in that moment when he's having that frustration, so we can try to calm him down? Yeah, usually me and my wife, we are asking ourselves what did we do, or how did it happen? But when he's not expressing himself, or he's not expressing his emotions, for example, what could we do in order for him to calm him, and how not to repeat that mistake because he doesn't say what did we do wrong or something, you know?
Yeah. And thank you. And it's really hard for our kiddos that aren't as verbal. And it's really hard because sometimes our kids don't even know. I mean, sometimes we're in a mood and we don't even know why we're in a mood. And so it can be obviously very hard. And my kids, for years now, we've gotten to a point where they do identify how they're feeling and what they need. But it has taken many, many, many years. For the younger ones and for the kiddos that it is hard, that they can't express what's going on, this is where we have to kind of be detectives and just look at what has changed. So you were outside and you came inside. He just liked the big outside. Maybe he liked the fresh air. Maybe there's, our kids are so sensitive. I've had one kid that there was a smell that the mom, the way she cooked, there was one Indian dish that she cooked and the child was so sensitive to the smell. He would just, whenever she cooked it, he would always have a meltdown. And she never put 2 to 2 together till finally she realized, it was the smell of that, because she found out every time she had cooked that, he had this reaction. It's so challenging to know what our kids are feeling at that moment and what their triggers are. And number one, be gentle with yourself, because I think parents were like, well, we should know what's wrong with our kids. We should know what's going on. And no, we shouldn't. I always say kids didn't come with instruction manuals, it's not easy to figure out. And they don't even know, right? So just try to see in those situations, and I call it the ABCs of behavior. This actually a workshop that I do, we go over that, where we talk about, ABC, the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. So I always look at, when I see a behavior for a kid, I always look at what happened first. Because usually you can start to see either if, when this was taken away, obviously, I mean, some kids just don't want, as you said, basically he wants the phone, and when it gets taken away, he's not happy. So a lot of times that is it. But for him, maybe it is something inside that is triggering, or he just wanted to go for a walk more. Maybe he just really needed that fresh air. So, I mean, just see what you're doing when you're transitioning. And then those moments to help calm them. Sometimes kids just need to let it out. And it's hard for us to just let it out, but sometimes just giving them that space, but sometimes they do need us to kind of come in to console them. So just watch and see what works for your child, coming in and, coming or walking back out, and see what he needs. But, at that age, and I know you said your child's a bit young, I think he's a bit younger. Those are a bit difficult. And it's just with walking, and just let it ride out. If you get, and just say, I'm sorry you're upset, and just, that's, I don't know. Does anyone else have anything to add? Because for that one, my guess is he just didn't want to come in and he wanted to keep walking. So it's, if you don't want him to walk anymore.
Usually I just, for example, for me, I'm just giving him a big hug, comfort him. Also,
Can I ask you,
telling him to
when you
yeah.
hug him, does he feel comforted?
Yeah, I think so, but he will get calm, and afterwards he will start crying again. So, but still, I don't know if that's good enough for him or not. If that's enough for him to calm him, but then again, probably not, because after a while he starts crying again, and usually afterwards I tell him to take a big breaths, so start breathing, like I'm showing him how to breathe, and he's doing that as well. Afterwards, I'm taking him to a much calmer room, which we can hug each other, breathe a lot, huge breaths, big breaths. So yeah. But afterwards, after several minutes, he would get calm. But then again, because he's still not expressing his feelings, I'm still not sure if that's the it is, if that it's enough, or it takes time for him to get calm, and that's it. It's difficult to read our children's minds, so yeah, if we know what is the proper method, it would be much easier for us to tell, for the kids to tell us what's wrong. But then again, yeah.
I wish some people have used different augmentative communication to try to help. But like I said, sometimes our kids don't even know why they're feeling that way. And so I think you had it, you, like you said, you gave them that moment, you give them the breathing, maybe he needs some more. And that's the other thing, is he may be really enjoying that time with you. And then when you stop and you got him calm and you walk away, he's like, all right, I want dad back to do this with me. Right? And then, so there could be, so, it's not easy. It's not easy being a parent. But I think you're on the right track. You're doing that breathing. You're doing those things that help calm him. I love that you're hugging him, and just be mindful of that, like what his need in that moment. And like I said, I think sometimes it is. He may be, as soon as you stop, I really like that attention and hug for dad, so I'm going to start again. So just be mindful of that. Keep doing what you're doing, and just see what's working, what's not working. Do more of what's working, and what's not working, just look and see the environment, his mood. It's a process. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else? I see some things in the chat, but I can't. I'm hoping some people are giving some different advice, which is great. Does anyone else have?
I'm just going to follow on to what Maria has said there just now. For my daughter, I have two daughters, a stepdaughter and a biological daughter. They're both my daughters, and they both had, we usually knew what they were angry about, but for one of them, it was very difficult to know how to respond to it, and we kind of, we got to the point where we kind of just had to ignore it and let it play out. So and it seemed to us, for this particular girl, that it wouldn't be a good idea to go in and pay attention to it and hug her, just because it seemed like that was part of what the behavior was trying to get from us. So we tried to have that emotional support the rest of the time. I don't know how well we did. We're doing pretty well now, but when she was younger, I think that was part of the problem, is that a lot of the other times she didn't have the emotional support, and things were kind of changing in her life very quickly. So she was frequently, I think, just getting angry, and small things would kind of trigger this deeper anger. And anyway, and so we would kind of let the tantrum burn out, and then we'd try to apply the affection and the attention after the behavior was gone, just so we weren't reinforcing that behavior. But that might not always be the right thing, but in that case, for us, I think it was.
Thank you. And that's, like I said, every child's different. And like I said, the reasons for behaviors, like Benjamin said, you thought maybe attention was one of those reasons, so you didn't want to draw attention to that behavior. and just letting them out. I don't believe holding emotions in is a very good thing. So I do believe we do have to kind of let our kids out. But I'm going to circle around to one of the big things too, is our kids, the amount of stress our kids with special needs have is a lot. So another thing I always do is I try the preventative approach. So how can I give them a calm, organized, stable environment as much as I can so they feel less stressed? I'm sure you guys have heard of snooze-a-leum rooms, where those rooms with the different lights and they're calming. Well, they became popular because they're calming and they're in a place where kids can just feel at calm and at ease, and it's low light. And so, as much as I can, I try to give my kids a routine, because when they know what's coming, it's less stressful. But it's not always easy, but I try. And also just being there, especially at night. At night, I always make sure I'm with them. We're talking, they're going to bed and they're calm and organized, getting enough sleep, because if they're not getting good quality sleep, they're just a bear the next day. So there are some things that we can look at. What can I do to kind of help have them less stressed and more doing things so they're more resilient in those challenging moments? So that is another approach, a little different than some of the behavior approaches. It's more kind of a preventative thing. And like one of my kids, he had low sugar. Like when his blood sugar was low, forget it. Like 2 PM, he would have a meltdown. And we figured this out. We made sure, all right, make sure he is getting a snack. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can kind of look at too to kind of prevent. So, I hope this was helpful. Really, self-regulation is something that is challenging for our kids. One of the things that I started doing, because I know how hard it is for our kids to self-regulate and how much stress impacts them. But in my journey as a parent, I realized my stress was impacting their stress, and their stress was impacting my stress. And so we were doing a stressful loop. And I noticed when I was stressed and I was upset and I was anxious, my kids were the same. And my one kid would stim more. And so what I realized is I can't always come up with the answer for them. But if I'm in a better place, I can handle those moments. Because sometimes when we're stressed and we're tired and then our kids have this tantrum, right? And we flip our lid, or we just don't know, or we're like questioning, right? And so how can we take care of ourselves so in those moments we are more resilient? There's something called co-regulation. Co-regulation is when one nervous system helps calms another. And it sounds like, Mr. Maria, that's what you were doing. You were trying to help him calm. But sometimes we may be very anxious and worried and fearful. What am I doing? Am I doing this right? Which actually is, even though we're doing the actions to calm, if we are not in that space, which is extremely hard to do, I'm not saying this is easy, but if we're not in that space, we can't help as much. So if you're interested, a couple of the different ways that I found that I really wanted to help with parents with that stress is I created a workshop called Mindfully Decreasing Stress. It's a 4-hour workshop on the last Sunday of the month, and then it'll be pre-recorded. But it really is helping us to understand our stress and help us to start the process of decreasing stress in a way so we can be there for our kids, because this is stressful. I mean, I was burnt out. I didn't dream for like 5 years because I didn't sleep. And so these are things that I just want to make sure you guys, if you're on this path as well, don't go there, and to give you the tools not to go there. And so you can help regulate too, so you can be there and help your kids regulate. And a lot of the tools I share for you guys, you can use with your kids. So just putting it out there, that is something, if you're interested, I can put the address to the website and you guys can check out that. And I have also a parenting class that's coming up to help parents but it's more if your child can't, if the communication's an issue, this course may not be as fruitful for you. There may be other courses that are a little bit easier and better for you. But yeah, it's a journey. It is a journey, and you guys are rock stars, because parenting kids with special needs and that are sensitive takes a lot of patience, a lot of time, a lot of understanding. So I just want to give you guys a pat on the back and thank you for coming and looking for some tips on how you can help your kids. And I will put my information, so if you have any other questions, feel free to thank you, Jessica. Feel free to email me, set a time. I'm going to put in my information, and I'm going to put in my link to, if you have any questions, it's like a 20-minute consult or a 20-minute call. Like, go ahead. If I didn't address your question, I'm going to put it in the chat right now. Go ahead and, contact me, and maybe we can dig a little deeper. Because I know a lot of parents are also from places where you guys can't get therapy as easily. And so, not that I can, in 20 minutes, but at least I can give a little tidbit to kind of help and give you maybe a direction for where to find help in your area. So there is the contact. And if you want to come to the other monthly meetups, you can register there. And then the EJ in the chat, the EJSOT.com is how you can go to my website to find out more about what I offer. So yeah, I just want to help because I've been there. I've been on a journey. It's not easy. And, Chesmack, you're a rock star with 4 kids, and you've done the learning, you've done the digging, and thank you for sharing with us some great.
Do you notice my eye twitching? Like, it's nonstop twitching. I think that's a stress response. I was going to ask, your 4-hour stress workshop that you have, is that only offered on Sundays, or will you be providing that on a weekday at any point?
I will have a pre-recorded version, and the problem with the time differences.
Yeah.
And that's why I do Sundays, because I can get the gamut of time zones and
right.
working too. So yeah, that's, but I will, like I said, have a pre-recorded to where, and there'll be a Facebook group with it, so we can continue to check up, chat, see how things are going. So yeah, because
I'd love to register for that, because I think that's a huge thing that would be really helpful. Sundays are really hard, like weekends are hard with the 4 kids at home. So if it's a pre-recorded one, I would love to register, pay, whatever is involved to learn from you, because you're just absolutely amazing.
Oh, well, you are too, Chesmack. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, and like I said, I just want to share what has helped me with you guys. So if this is, like I said, I don't want you to go down the same, you can hit burnout pretty easy as a parent of a child with special needs. And it's so, so important, because it helps your kid when you're in a better place. Because when we're tired and our fuse is very short, it can impact our relationships with our kids. And I will tell you, when I started taking care of myself, my kids had less emotional outbursts. When I was happier, they became happier, because I was happy. I was coming at them in a good mood. I wasn't so stressed. I wasn't so anxious. So it really is, I really feel this is such an important piece that most people aren't addressing, and that's why I really feel strongly about helping parents. So my information's in there if you would like it. And I just want to say thank you guys for joining. I didn't get to see everyone, but I hope you enjoyed the information. And next month is focusing. So we're going to talk about focus and attention, because I feel that is a good topic. All right. Well, you guys I'll be here for a minute if you want to say anything. Otherwise, have a wonderful week, day, month,